Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the MFC Approach podcast. I was gonna say the same thing I always do, but I'm gonna not say the same thing that I do every single time. But I'm super stoked to have you here, Kevin. Dude, like I feel like I need to maybe think that through a little bit more before I just start the podcast every time because
Sure.
But I mean, it's just like so genuine, man. Like I really am so excited to have every single guest that I've had on this show. Like I've had on for the reason that like I've connected with that person. I value that person in some way, shape, or form. Like Kevin and I were part of a mentorship group similar to Adam Pullman that I had on a few weeks ago. Kevin is also part of that same mentorship group with Mike and Jordan. And I don't know, I've seen Kevin on the calls with them, the weekly, Q&As, and decided to reach out because I don't know, man, just like even just listening to you talk with Jordan and Mike a little bit, asking them questions and kind of talking about how things are going with your business. I just like, man, I want to talk to that guy. And so we've had one call and we decided to do this podcast, and I'm super grateful to have you here, man. Seriously.
Dude, the honor is mine. I appreciate it. And it's so funny you're talking about the mentorship and everything. I think I've missed the last two calls, which are my bad. But yeah, man, I know that's the nice thing about the mentorship where it's, we go into it looking to learn from like Jordan and Mike.
Yeah.
But then you start to recognize all these people, and then they're popping up on your feed on social media. Then you're like, oh, I recognize this face. Let me reach out, say hello. You say hello. Hey, we should connect, hop on a call and just, shoot the shit.
Yep.
And then we shoot the shit, and this leads to a relationship, right? It's like you slowly kindle this relationship, and the next thing you know, you're like buds with the person and hanging out. You're going on each other's podcasts and all that good stuff. So, dude, it's awesome to be here, Luke. I really appreciate you having me on, though.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's funny. I actually got a message. Well, a while back, I noticed that one of the ladies in the mentorship group too, like posted a picture, and I was like, that looks like Utah, and like that's where I'm from. That's where I live, is in Utah. Messaged her, dude. She literally lives like 10 minutes west.
That's
of me.
crazy. What a small world.
I know it is wild. So I think we were just messaging yesterday. I think we're going to get together and, with our spouses and go do something. And so anyways, it's cool, man. It makes this process of being like an online coach just more enjoyable. Like that's the one thing I miss about my office job is like interaction with people.
Sure.
And I get to interact with my clients, but it's like, it's all virtual. Right. And so anyways, it's nice when you can connect face to face with somebody, even if it is over a laptop. But
for sure, there's something to be said too about, this is going to come off weird, but being able to like touch someone, like having that sort of connection, that feel connection, I feel very blessed where I currently live in San Diego right now. So it's a nice vacation spot. So when people come to San Diego, it's nice to interact with them. That's where I've met a lot of my clients in person, because they decide to come here for a trip. I'm like, well, let's definitely meet up and get connected. And you can, just again, sort of build on that relationship. And again, just it's nice to have that face-to-face interaction with someone. It's different. We try to do the best we can online, right? To make it very personal, very interactive, but something about being face-to-face is beneficial as well.
Yeah, for sure, man. That's so cool. I didn't even really think about that. Like you do live in a destination spot, a touristy spot. And so
I live where you vacation, baby.
Well, if we ever get out there, I mean, we have been out there for vacation. So, I mean, when we do come out again, I mean, we came out for a Padres game. So we'll have to go to another Padres. That stadium, dude, is by far my favorite.
Dude, it's definitely a top stadium. So it's again, insane. Not to start giving background, but being originally from Massachusetts, right?
Yeah.
Fenway's legendary. Fenway's legendary, like super historical, a lot of history to it. And then you go to Petco and you're like, wow, this is bougie compared to Fenway. Fenway's like historical, but you're like very cramped, very tight spaces, like walking through underneath the stadium, everything is again, just let's call it old for a great reason. But with Petco, it's just so much room, so much like up to date things going on there. So it is a really nice stadium. It definitely is one of my top ones for sure too.
Yeah, that's a good point, though. Not as much history, right? But
Sure.
that's what I love about ballparks, man. It's like you go to each one, and each one just has its own story. So awesome, dude. Well, dude, please do give a little bit of background.
Sure.
Let's let everybody know who I'm talking to today and who they're listening to. So, if you wouldn't mind, I mean, as much detail or as little detail as you want to give us about your life, please. Like, let's go back a little bit and help us understand who Kevin is.
For sure. So I could talk for a minute, or I could talk for the next 20. So feel free to cut me off whenever. Okay. But yeah, so Kevin Driscol, I'm an online personal trainer, nutrition coach, fat loss coach, whatever you want to help or whatever you need help with from a health and fitness standpoint. But grew up in Massachusetts, playing sports, kind of the typical, maybe common lifestyle as a kid. You play all the sports. But was lucky enough to kind of compete in sports, hockey and baseball in high school, and then play in college baseball as well. So continuing to play baseball throughout college. And sort of through that time, was always into sports, but was always, I guess, initially struggled with my own body image issues. I remember the day when first starting to get body image issues. It was in 4th grade. I remember a girl liked me, and I remember one of my buddies saying, "I don't know why this girl likes you, dude. You're fat." And I remember in that moment, could tell you the person's name, tell you what class I was in. It's crazy. It's like a stapled memory. It's crazy how that happens.
What a freaking big head, first of all.
Dude, fuck that dude. Seriously, fuck that dude. No, obviously, it's a kid. Like, I obviously do not hold anything against him. He was, in 4th grade. I'm sure I said dumb shit to people that holding against me at this point.
Yeah.
But it was just one of those moments where getting super red, super embarrassed, and really starting to be concerned about my body. And because I was a chubbier kid, like I know that. But that's really was the moment where I was just very insecure, started to get really insecure of what I looked like. But obviously it's 4th grade. It's not like I hopped on a fat loss training nutrition program or anything like that. But yeah, I just was more concerned about it. And so
I just think that's crazy, man, that you can pinpoint that though. Like in 4th grade, like, I don't know. That's wild to me. So anyways, sorry to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, you're good. But yeah, so anyways, after that, I think it was more towards even high school. I think, more jokes started to come. And it's one of those things too, where it's like locker room talk, it's just like, we all tease each other in a sense, but the tease on me was like one, being a chubbier, having fat, looking fat. People question my intelligence, which is things we're working on there as far as insecurities. And whatnot. But again, it just never felt good, even though as locker room talk, we're all joking with each other. Just things that end up building insecurities into my life. So finally, right when high school ended, the summer of going into my first year of college was sort of like the new, like, all right, I'm going to a new school with new people. I'm not, I obviously have my high school friends, but they're not going to be there with me. I can sort of really create this new lifestyle for myself. So that summer, I really committed to training, and I was familiar-ish with it, but I knew at that standpoint, I was committed. Like, this is changing. I started to really shift this identity I had in myself of not being a gym person to like, I'm going to be this person. And there's other factors. Like I always say, my brother was a very fit person, was like the ladies' man growing up. And so I'm like, oh, he's so cool. I want to be like him when I'm older. And I was like, there's another, impact on me making this decision where I wanted to be the fit kid. I wanted to be the cool kid. So committed that summer to it. And yeah, sort of like since then, I've been pretty committed to it. Initially started off from an unhealthy way because I was doing it for external validation. To today is a lot different. But after, going through college and sort of going through this transformation, it was late college for myself where, excuse me, where I started diving into the nutrition a little bit more, excuse me, because I built a lot of muscle and I'd go in these seasons of being a little bit lean, being a little bit more overweight, and just trying to learn how to really, kind of stay lean. But even after college, I was able to create a physique that was I wasn't the leanest person ever. I always say like, yeah, I look like I lift weights, but I also look like I don't say no to pizza. But yeah. And then, it wasn't until after college, I actually worked in like an office, like corporate America, and did that for about 1.5 to 2 years. But that's when I really kind of like regained a lot of weight, because you go from living this college lifestyle where you can get away with a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I was partying every weekend, eating McDonald's every weekend, but also like I was very active. Like I was playing baseball. I was walking to parties and dancing at parties. Like, versus afterwards, you're sitting at a bar and being very sedentary and you're drinking and eating all these things. So the lifestyle changed quite a bit, where I eventually got to the heaviest I've ever weighed, which was, I think, like 232-ish pounds.
Gotcha.
And I always make the joke, I can always send over a picture, but I had no neck. I really had no neck. It was just like a lot of face fat, just covering my chin. And then my neck was just huge. Like I was a big, bulky guy still, like with muscle, but just looked like this thumb looking meatball, which I love to joke about myself too. But yeah, so once that came into play, working a 9 to 5 and struggling there, that's when one was transitioning. Like I didn't love my career, so I was unhappy there. I wanted to become a personal trainer / nutrition coach, be in the fitness and wellness industry. But I really wanted to make a change of some sort where I didn't have to yo-yo diet anymore, because that was another part of it from college to that point. So that must have been, 2011 to about 2017, 2018, where during the school year in college, no rules. I was eating, drinking, anything, still lifting hard, training hard. Again, not gaining as much fat, but still gaining fat. But then summer would come and it was like strict mode. Like I am all in. I'm not, going on vacations, or if I'm going on vacations, I'm still following my plan. I'm not missing a gym session. I'm going to train 6 days a week. And I do 2-a-days on 3 days a week. I'm eating the chicken, broccoli, rice. I used to put 6 bags of green tea in a glass, because I read online that it would ignite my metabolism, that green tea would. So I'm like, oh, if 1 bag of green tea does it, I'm going to do 6. So I would do ridiculous things. Again, I obviously kind of rambling on at this point, but yeah. And then sort of, once I transitioned out of college and into the workplace, struggling there, I eventually found Jordan Syatt. Long story short.
Cool.
His videos, I remember being at the office one day and just like binging his videos. Like was supposed to be working, but I was binging his videos at a standpoint where I felt like a transition coming in my life. So I just didn't really care either. Like if they fire me, they're doing something good. But yeah, eventually obviously switched careers into becoming a personal trainer. Was a personal trainer for 5 years in person, training anyone from athletes to just general population, to eventually transition into more specifically behind fat loss and nutrition coaching.
Cool.
Which I've been running my own thing for the last, 2.5, 3 years at this point.
Sweet. Dude, that's so cool. And thank you so much for there's so many good things in there that I would love to kind of touch on. So maybe we can, but just thank you so much for the recap, dude, because I think even though you mentioned you felt like you were rambling on, dude, I think somebody, if not multiple people, are going to listen to this and be like, I know exactly what he's feeling, like what he's felt. I've been there. And so hopefully, somebody can resonate with that and kind of take away, how you ultimately made those changes. I mean, it's interesting though, because I think one of the things I want to kind of touch on first is would you say the way you went about, some of the things you implemented obviously were pretty extreme, right? Your training schedule was, that was wild, man. That's extreme. The six bags of green tea in a cup, that's obviously really extreme. And I mean, we could obviously touch on that as well. All of these myths, that are out there, real or not real. It's bottom line is they're probably not as effective as people make them sound sometimes. So anyways, let's start with just like when you decided to make this change and you were at this point of just like all in. What benefits came from that, but also what would you say was the downside of some of the approaches you did take? Because again, it's like some of those were intense, dude. And I just think about somebody who's starting out feeling like they have to go to the gym 6 days a week and 3 of those days a week have to go twice a day. It's like obviously not sustainable, right? So anyways, I'm just curious to kind of get your thoughts and feedback on that.
Yeah, I agree. I was super extreme for sure. And that's sort of why I do what I do today, or what we do today. It's just from my own experience. Because I always like to make the joke, like, I've done it all, what you did. You know, I've done the 2 days, I've done the extreme diets, I've done the keto, I've done the intermittent fasting, thinking that was this magical thing. And like I talked about, like I've drank too much green tea that I can't drink it anymore. No, that was just for a summer. But I always did these extremes, you know, because that's what I thought was needed. I think a little bit comes from my mindset as well back then, is I did want like a quick fix. I wanted results in the course of weeks to maybe a month. So I was willing to sacrifice everything in order to get that. But then, yes, it maybe worked throughout the summer, but guess what happened? I would go back to school. I would be binge drinking again. I'd be eating anything I could. I'd just be doing all these things. And I typically would be like, oh, cool. Like, I'm so lean this first month of school. But by week 3 to week 4, I was right back to where I was in, you know, May or April or May before I started that whole regimen. It wasn't, I would feel like, you know, in the summer, I try to have so much control since I had so much more time on my hands with not being in school, with also controlling my environment more versus having roommates living in a college house, living in the college dorms, where, you know, there's a lot of influences going on, a lot of peer pressures going on that I would easily fall into. And that's my choice, by the way. I'm not making excuses for them. But so like the summertime would be my time to really control everything and really dial things in. But the trade-offs were tough. Like, you know, I remember being stressed about going on vacation, and, you know, people would have a drink at the beach and I'd be like, no. And I'd be like, so like angry and grumpy the whole time, but that's on me because I was not confident, and I hated this influence that I had to battle this resistance. Like, it's uncomfortable, right? When you're trying to change or follow a certain game plan, you're going to be stuck in these moments of being uncomfortable. And that's not a bad thing either. But for me, it was too much. It was too much discomfort that would just piss me off and be angry. So I wouldn't be able to enjoy vacations. Or, you know, my boys would want to get together for a night and I just say no. Like, sorry, I'm not going out because I can't control myself while we're having drinks and pizza. So I'm just not going to go. Now I'm going to miss out on hanging out with my friends, which is probably going to hurt our relationship over time, which probably did, to be honest, where we started to communicate less. And I started to get invited to things less, where I made that choice, and then it impacted our relationship in that standpoint. So sort of like with the question you're asking, you know, what I want to share is a quote I really love when it comes to making changes with your lifestyle, with your health, is one, like, there has to be changes that need to be made. But the real question when it comes to deciding what to do is really figuring out what trade-offs are you willing to make. So Lane Norton said, there's no solutions, there's just trade-offs. Like, what trade-offs are worth it? Where, you know what, the trade-off of getting up at 5 a.m. so you can actually hit the gym this morning will be worth it. Like, absolutely, you get a gym session in, you feel better, the day goes on, great, perfect. But like the trade-off of going to your vacation and not having a good time, where you now are not creating memories, not celebrating whatever you're celebrating, not getting rest and recovery because you're constantly just trying to be so rigid with things, that might not be worth it. It's up to you to determine. But like, sort of just figuring out what trade-offs are worth it. So a lot of times when someone enters a diet and they're like, oh, I'm thinking about doing keto. I was like, all right, do you want to give up carbs the rest of your life? They're like, well, no. It's like, well, keto is probably not a good trade-off for you then. Like, you know, let's rather incorporate carbs and figure out a way to moderate them in a standpoint where you do have them in moderation, manage them in the standpoint we can have them in moderation. Maybe there's something else to work on there. We don't have to do this full on extreme. We just have to kind of find a better system and foundation for you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. No, there's so much good stuff there. I think as I just kind of reflect on it, I love that quote, by the way. Say it one more time for me, Kevin.
There's no solutions. There's only trade-offs.
There's no solutions. There's only trade-offs. I don't know, man. I just, as you kind of reflect on your past and kind of what got you to where you are today, it's interesting because I've attributed where I'm at today, with my health, with my fitness, with my physique, to making so many mistakes along the way. Right. And I think you would definitely agree with that. It's like when I was in college, yeah, I could go to the gym 6 days a week and my body was fine. I held up just fine. But it's interesting as my life has changed. I mean, I'm 34 now. I'm been married for 13 years. I've got 3 little boys. It's like going to the gym 6 days a week, even if I thought it was a good idea now, just wouldn't be doable. You know what I mean? Like it's not where my priority is. But it's also interesting too, because the more I learn and the more I educate myself and the more I have experienced all this, it's like, I realize now that, I mean, going to the gym 6 days a week just isn't a good idea for me regardless. Sure. Even if I do have the time, my body just doesn't feel as good. And so, I mean, by no means am I saying that I'm old, because I mean, that's one thing that will kind of set me off is when people talk about like, oh man, I'm 30, I'm 34. And my body hurts. And I'm just like, I'm slowing down. I'm like, bro, don't even talk to me, please. Like it's a choice you're making. Right. But with that being said too, I'm so happy with like the balance that I've struck now. And I feel like it's sustainable forever. Sure. I don't know why, like it never ceases to amaze me. Every time I start working with a new client, it's like, let's go. Like they just want to hit the ground running and they want to go as fast as they can and they want to lose the weight and they want to gain all the muscle. And it's like, you know what? I can respect that. I can respect that. And I understand that you're wanting change. And it's like, let's use some of that motivation and let's get you started off on the right foot. But at the same time too, let's just cool down a little bit, let's see the big picture here. And let's make this sustainable. And so I don't know, man, like I just appreciate so much you sharing all of the experience you've had. And it's like, I think that I can speak for both of us. It's like, the fact that we have learned from our mistakes is kind of what has driven me to want to become a coach. Is like, I want to help people not make the same mistakes that I did. Sure. And I want to help them get to like that optimal, sustainable, healthy lifestyle much quicker than I got. For sure.
So. Absolutely. Dude, it's so funny when I think about even more things I did in the gym. Like I said, training 6 days a week, doing 2 days, half the week. My training was also, I was PRing pretty much every week. Like, let's hit a bench press PR this week. I was going for it. It's one of those things like you get away with it, right? You just don't know what you don't know and you're getting away with it. You're like, this is sick though. But it's one of those things in college, my responsibility was baseball. I'm not even going to say school because I cheated my way through school. If I'm being blunt, like I cheated my way through school. I struggle with learning. I get that. I found out when I was 28, I was dyslexic. And so like learning, I just thought I was stupid this whole time. But I just like struggled to learn. So I'm like, fuck it. I'm going to cheat. Like that's how I'll get through college. So hopefully I don't get my diploma taken away for this on the podcast. But it's just one of those things I just didn't know about myself. But, my responsibilities were, I guess college in a sense, but baseball and hanging out with my friends and lifting. Like that's all it is, Then you get put to reality where, all right, well, now you have a job, 9 to 5. Now there's a partner in there, right? You get a partner, maybe you're dating someone, maybe kids eventually get into the mix where it's just all these responsibilities start adding up. Yeah. And it's just different. And like what you said is, I was training like crazy through college, and now I train about 4 to 5 days a week for about 45 minutes per session. I'd say about 3 of those to 4 of those are lifting each week. 1 to maybe 2 of them will be training. I have like a weird training schedule, but 1 to 2 of them will be conditioning. And I get better results, training 4 times a week than I was doing 6 times a week. But because I'm also resting and not burning myself out, where the training I do getting is way more efficient and way more effective. I'm giving it, let's say, an 80 to 100% effort versus 6 days a week at 20% effort, because I'm just trying to grind through it. So I think that makes a huge difference too. Is like you're giving yourself those rest days are almost like momentum days. So the days you do lift, you have a lot of this momentum built into it that you just go dominate it, and then you sort of put that in repeat week to week.
Yeah, man. So true. So true. Yeah, I've said in some content and stuff before, but it's like when I was in college, dude, that's the easiest time of life. Like, I'm convinced that college is just the easiest time of life. And I don't know, I guess I should speak for myself. I'm sure there's students out there who take college really seriously. And
sure.
I was not that person.
I was not one of them.
I got my degree and I was just checking boxes,
For sure.
I wish so bad I would have had like the awareness to just be like, look, this isn't serving a purpose for me. Like, why not just get started with something I'm passionate about and love doing now versus just checking a box for whatever, for my parents to be happy with me, or just like to check the boxes for the world. Right. I don't know, man. So,
well, that's what we're taught too.
Right.
So this is, I can transition this to, for the listeners too.
Yeah.
Is, I get why people do the things they do is because that's what they're marketed. That's what they're told to do. That's what they're that's what they're marketed as far as like, this looks appealing to do. Yep. Like, hey, lose 30 pounds in 30 days. It's like, if I didn't know what I didn't know, right, I'd be like, fuck yeah. Like,
sounds amazing. Let's go.
Great. I will do that 100%. Yeah. So same thing is like, I think similar to probably your situation is like, go to college, get a degree, get a good job, live happily ever after. Right. Yeah. But for me, it's just one of those things where I was 18, like went in undeclared, like, I don't know what I want to do. And then eventually like, all right, I'll do business. Like, that's safe. That's fine. And then even doing that, it's like, I have no passion for this. And it's, I don't care about someone's, market research or their sales and whatnot for this company. Like, for me, it's just more or less, I want to have purpose in life.
Yeah.
And I think for me and you, and maybe I won't speak for you, but for me, it was getting into something that I've experienced in my own life and made a change in my own life and helping someone else with it as well. Knowing that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, there is changes that can be made, and you don't have to deal with hopefully all the struggles I've dealt with. But you probably also have, like, you've probably been in for years and decades at this point, but the goal is to really help you find that. I always like to say, like, achieve fat loss freedom with living happily ever after is, getting eventually off that sort of dieting roller coaster and just have the confidence to take care of your health and fitness, but also eat the fucking donut once in a while. Like, enjoy life too. Sorry, I swear a lot. Is that okay?
Dude, you do you, man. You do
Right,
you.
well.
I don't know. In a past life, earlier in my life, I would have cared, but honestly, dude, like, I don't know. I just want you to be you, man. Be authentic. That's one thing I feel like. It's like, I choose to live the way I choose to live, and I respect that you can choose to live the way you want to live, and I don't think any less of you, man. So,
all right, cool.
Like, you do you, man. I just so kind of want to like transition just a little bit, Kevin.
Yep.
You work. I mean, most of your content is fat loss oriented. And I mean, I think that's just kind of what, when I think of you and like, I think of your content and I think of your coaching, I think fat loss. And so I don't want to make a blanket statement here and say that's all you do, but I think that's one thing you're really good at. Like, as I look at some of your transformation photos that you've had with your clients, it's like insane amounts of fat loss. Like, it's wild, man. So I want to ask just like some questions kind of based around that for people who are maybe in a position right now who are like, hey, I'm ready to lose some body fat. Like I'm ready to lose this excess weight and stuff. And so I'm just curious, like, what would you say is like the most common misconceptions about fat loss that you have seen with your personal experience and with your clients? Like what is the most common misconceptions they have had coming into working with you when it comes to fat loss?
So a big one that stands out is there's a lot that comes to mind, but the big one that stands out, because I've had a couple conversations with new clients in the past, probably like 2 months, is the rate of progress, like the rate of, more specifically, the scale. You know, most people, again, this is what we're marketed towards as far as dropping 30 pounds. So like, you think the scale is the magical tool of fat loss.
Yep.
So that's what we only focus on. Or excuse me, not we, but that's what people only focus on. So there's a big misconception of the scale is the only form of measuring your progress, where if you want to battle the voices in your head day in and day out, week in and week out, month in and month out, like, yes, continue to just use the scale. But like, if you want to stop quitting every time like you start seeing that scale go up, I'm not saying don't stop using it, but just give yourself other forms to measure progress as well.
Yeah.
You know, physically, I love progress pictures. I love, you know, measurements of like your waist and hips. I like using the scale as well. What I'll typically tell people with the scale is just look at how it trends over the course of 4 to 8 weeks. Or there's another option where just average out your weekly weigh-ins and see what it trends week over week. Yeah. Again, over the course of still 4 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
Just because we need to play the long game with it, because it's going to fluctuate up and down. And if we're judging it on a day-to-day basis, it's going to be a mind fuck. It really is. You're going to be battling every single day. And I want to add this too. It's like, don't get me wrong. Like when I'm in a mini cut or I'm trying to lose a little bit of fat, if I weigh in one morning and I see it went up a pound or two, it's not like I'm like, woo, this is the greatest thing ever. I'm still human. I'm like, oh, damn, like it did pop up a little bit, because it's just not fun to see. Not that there's anything that went wrong. It's just one of those things. It's like a 2-second reaction. It's like, oh, damn. But the reality is you settle back and you're like, oh, this could have happened for a million reasons: water retention, food volume, stress, like whatever may be going on here. But you continue on with your game plan that day. Like you don't change anything because it popped up, because we also don't know what the full picture is yet either. Right. That's just that's one day. That's such a little amount of data to make any judgment. You really have to judge the scale along with other things. At least I almost want to push like 2 to 3 months, like at least a month to 2 at the very minimum.
Yeah.
Because, you know, if the scale's not moving, but also if we have a change in progress photos, if we have a change in measurements, like you notice like progress photos, like, oh, like I see a little bit more arm definition, a little bit more like back fat, back rolls are smoothing out, you know, the abs are coming in a little bit, but the scale stayed exactly the same. Well, I hate to tell it to you, but you made progress. Like we can physically see a difference in your body. Your body is physically changing. So we know fat is being lost. You might have gained a little bit of muscle, which you gained a pound of muscle, lose a pound of fat. It's not going to show up on the scale, but it'll show up in the progress photos. Yeah. Same thing with measurements. You know, I had a client start up with me in January, and for the first like 6 to 8 weeks, the scale didn't move all that much. It maybe moved like a pound or two in about 2 months. And I was like, you haven't updated your measurements on pictures. Let's just update those. So she did her waist and hips, and she was down 5 inches. I'm like, holy shit. Like, that's actually a shit ton. Like, that's a lot of inches.
5 inches is wild.
Wild, dude. I was actually shocked. And she's like, yeah, this is great. And she was so amped. But guess what happened? She did that, allowed her to trust the process a little bit more. The next 3 weeks, over the next 3 months, she's lost 10 pounds. So it's just like, all right, now that's starting to reflect a little bit more. So I get it. It can be mentally challenging, but you know, always come back to like playing the long game with it. And like I was saying earlier, it's data. To be at the end of the day, it's data. It doesn't mean you're a bad person. It doesn't mean you're like a piece of shit or anything. Like you're still a good parent, still a good friend, still a good coworker. Like that's not your worth, but just data to let us know like, hey, is what we're doing working right now? If it is, cool, awesome. If you're making progress in any one of those 3 areas, cool, what you're doing is working. And let's say it's not, all right. Well, let's reflect on it. Let's figure out what we're missing. If there is anything missing, are you being consistent? Are we, counting our licks, bites, and nibbles? How are the weekends looking like? Let's dive into it a little bit more, because now at least we can find and address an area that needs improvement, and we can start to put strategies and systems for that thing so you can improve upon it and then start to make a little bit more progress. So it's just data. That's the way I always like to view it as.
I love it, man. I love it so much. I think that's probably one of the best misconceptions you could have addressed. And I just want to add to it too, if I can, but it's like, I do all of those things as well. Progress photos, body metrics, weigh-ins. I don't know. I'm curious, how regularly do you have clients weigh in? Does it vary person to person?
I have clients weigh in every single day, typically.
Okay, cool.
I just every morning, wake up, take a pee, take a poop, do your thing there, hop on it in your, just like your underwear and everything.
Yep. Just
hop on, track it, plug it in, then we move on for the day.
Cool.
And then measurements and progress pictures are typically every 4 weeks.
Cool. Okay. So before I make the point I wanted to make, and then real quick, I think that's really important to note too, is like, if you are somebody who is trying to track your progress with the scale, you need to weigh yourself in the morning after you go to the bathroom every time. Because if you're weighing yourself in the middle of the day or at night, your body weight is fluctuating so much. So I think that's just a really good pointer to make as well, is like, if you're going to do it and you want to get as accurate as you can with it, I would highly recommend that you do it first thing in the morning, right after you go to the bathroom. But the other thing I wanted to mention too, is like, we can use all that data and those metrics and those numbers and progress photos. And even then, dude, it's like, even if those aren't reflecting, it's like, let's look at how your clothes are fitting. Let's look at what your energy levels are. Let's look at all of these things, because I was just thinking specifically of a client that she's been working with her for less than a month, dude. And with each weekly check-in so far, she's made the comment, I really wish the scale was moving more. I really wish the scale was moving more. But then later on in the check-in, she goes, my clothes are fitting looser. My energy levels are increased. And I'm like, hey, hold up. Let's backtrack just a little bit, let's address this. It's like, you may not be seeing the progress you want to see with the scale. And obviously in a few weeks, we may not see a ton of progress in photos, but it's like, there are some really early on wins that you can address or recognize without seeing, progress in the numbers or the progress photos, and just realize that those little progressions are ultimately, I feel like, going to lead to the bigger, more noticeable, visible progressions as well. So it's just one thing I feel like time and time again, dude, people don't see the scale moving as much as they want. And I get it. Like, I sympathize with that. I do. But at the same time too, it's like, we got to take a step back, see the big picture, realize, that we are progressing in different ways other than just what the scale is telling us. So
for sure. Absolutely. And I love using like clothing or even like the internal ones is like, hey, this is the most consistent you've been in a decade with working out 3 times a week, eating more fruits and vegetables, eating more protein. Like, maybe we're not in a calorie deficit or anything like that, but like, we think about the long game here. These are investments to really make with your habits to get confident in that are only going to make it easier. With one thing that popped into my mind that I'm going to share. So sorry if I'm cutting you off.
No, you're good, man. You're good.
But I always talk about, with your health, with relationships, with your career, like just these certain areas of life. In a world where everything is so instant, you can watch your favorite show on Netflix within hours in one day. You can get groceries delivered to your door. You can do all these things and everything. Amazon packages come right to your door. Like, you get whatever you need within hours. Like, we don't have to wait 3 to 5 business days pretty much at this point, or wait a week for the next episode to come out. Everything's so instant, but there's going to be these big areas of our life that no matter what, for them to progress and grow and for you to grow in them, they just take time. It's losing weight is going to take time. It's going to take repetition, going through tough moments, growing from those tough moments to adapt and grow. a relationship. You don't go on your first date and be like, all right, we're getting married. And maybe some people do. I'm sure there are some people that do. But like for the most part, you don't go on a date and be like, let's go have a kid. No, it's like you go on a couple more dates. You cherish that relationship for a couple of years, and then you make the next step, and then so on and so forth. It just takes time. Your career, you don't start a job and be like, next week I'm like, let's promote me, boss. I'm ready for it. It's like, dude, you just signed into your login account. Like, let's get some more repetition with things. Let's get you in here for it a little bit longer. So again, I guess to add to your original question where I talked about the scale, but also like a misconception, like this shit just takes time, because it's not just about losing the weight, which we could lose 30 pounds in 30 days. Mm-hmm. But why people are probably listening to this, why they're signing up, and why, like, you know, the world struggles with their weight, or a lot of people, individuals do, is because we're trying to make changes to your habits, your behaviors, all these things in your life. And typically it doesn't have to do with food and fitness. Like, we kind of have a good sense for most of us what to do, but what is causing you to not take action? You know, we know what to do, but why aren't you doing it? Mm-hmm. And there's typically something there. Maybe we have to dive a little bit deeper, create more awareness behind it. But, you know, are you stressed so you decide to eat the bag of chips? You know, did you have an argument with your spouse, so now let's go eat the carton of ice cream? Did your boss yell at you today? Is it more emotional side of things? You know, are the weekends just so lacking structure that you're just all over the place, so you just go banana pants on the weekend? So like there's a bunch of different reasons for it. But I guess what I'm coming down to is, you know, we all want this quick fix, which would be nice. But I just think with these important areas of our life, between, again, our career, our relationships, and our health, they're just things that, you know, will take time to grow and develop, but they're also amazing when they do. And it creates so much freedom for yourself when they do.
Yeah, I think a good term for that would be delayed gratification, right? Mm-hmm. The dopamine spikes, man, that we get on a daily basis. I mean, obviously social media, but even like you said, it's like ordering a package and like knowing it's going to be there either by the end of the day or tomorrow morning, like when you wake up. Like, we had an Amazon package on our doorstep this morning at like 6 a.m. I was like, what the world? So anyways, yeah, delayed gratification, man. There's not enough of that. And in ways that we used to get delayed gratification just kind of naturally, like we don't get that anymore. And so anyways, I love that. Kind of talking to the psychological side of things a little bit. I know neither of us are psychologists and wouldn't even pretend to be, but a lot of your content does touch on the mental side of things, because it's huge, man. It is such a massive part of just a health journey, a health process.
For sure.
And specifically, I would say a fat loss process. So I guess I just want to kind of touch on that just a little bit. Like, what role would you say the mental side of things, or like the emotional side of things, plays when it comes to, I mean, we won't even narrow it down to fat loss, but just like living a healthier lifestyle, like making those changes? Like, what would you say there? What role does mental health or emotional health play?
To be honest, I think it's 95% of it.
Yeah.
I do think it's 95% of it. I said this earlier, but I think a lot of us know what to do, which is how to apply it or how to stick with it. I think we all have, like to call these like inner demons we battle with, whether it's insecurities of some sort. But one thing that, this has been a personal journey of mine too, but I think it sort of relates to a lot of our clients, people who are struggling, is how we identify ourselves in a way. We won't go down that rabbit hole, but like the identity as far as how you view yourself.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, what story are you telling yourself?
Yep.
And we typically, you know, for example, you might get the person who says, I'm telling the story they tell themselves is, don't wake up early. Like, I'm just not a morning person.
Yeah. Yep.
I was like, yeah, well, you're right. Yeah. Like, if that's how you identify as just not a morning person, or someone who doesn't remember names or whatever, you won't. Like, that's going to be true. But to challenge that statement you said, I bet you if I said, hey, you have to wake up at 5 a.m. every morning, and if you do it 20 times this month, I will give you $1 million. I bet you become a morning person. So, all right, you can do it. It's just one of those things you're just telling yourself you can't. So that's how it's, again, obviously comfortable to not start to make changes. Like, there's that comfort feeling, but it's just what you're telling yourself, the story you're telling yourself. You know, it's the same idea as someone who says, hey, I'm just a binger. I just binge eat. Like I'm a binger. No, you're Cynthia. Like you had a moment where you binge eat, and it might happen kind of here and there throughout the month, but you're not a binge eater. You know, you're a mom, you're a coworker, you're a daughter, you're like a father, son, like whatever it may be, a friend. But we label ourselves as these things, like we are these things. And so like one thing I've been doing with myself is, you know, I'll tend to say a lot of times like, you know, I'm anxious, but now I'm saying, oh, this made me anxious, you know, in these certain scenarios. So I try to like not label myself, but label the thing. So I'm not putting that on me.
Yeah.
Just tell myself, because then you're like conditioning yourself to constantly think you're that thing. I'm constantly an anxious person. I'm constantly never going to be a person that wakes up early. I'm constantly just don't remember people's names. That's how you're labeling yourself. It's true, you know, but it doesn't have to be, but like you're making it true. So I think identity work in some sense or form can be a huge transition for people. And the way I sort of like been practicing that is, for me specifically, is just journaling. It's just, you know, I give my feelings valid. I like make sure they're valid, like how my emotions are, what's popping up for me, what story are they trying to tell me. But then I look at the facts, like what are the facts of this? You know, it might be someone who fell off track, right? I just can't do this. You know, I not a gym person. I can't eat healthy. Well, the facts are well, you know, yesterday must have been tough, but 2 days ago you hit the gym and you ate some fruits and vegetables and you ate your protein and you had a good day. Like you can do it. You just tell these emotions are starting to write the story for you versus like reflecting back on the facts. Like what's the actual facts of this scenario? And let's put our attention back on that, because it kind of helps you get regrounded again. It helps you kind of get present, you know, rather than letting the heavy emotion of what you're feeling take over the rest of the day, the next couple of days, and sort of something around that line. So
yeah, dude, man. Cool. I honestly don't know if I even have anything to add to that. Like I can agree with you more that the majority of this process is mental. It is emotional. You know, it's understanding how you feel and stuff, and understanding how you respond to certain situations, and understanding, you know, what you can do to kind of help yourself manage your emotions and have more mental clarity.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, because I think so much of the process affects that too, right? Like going and exercising is going to provide you with some mental clarity, like it or not, like it's just the way it is. Like that's just what research tells us and what it shows. But also, you know, like it helps you manage your emotions and stuff too. Yeah. So anyways, dude, like I said, I don't think I can really add to that any more than you did. So I appreciate all the insight there, dude. I guess just as kind of to wrap this up, Kevin, I want to just like give you an opportunity, I guess, to maybe say something to anybody out there who's listening, who maybe is frustrated with their progress, who maybe is like considering getting started, who isn't satisfied with their quality of life. You know, like, is there just like one thing that you could say to all of these individuals to kind of, you know, lift them up and help them either keep moving forward or get moving forward?
Yeah. So I guess my 2 cents here really is, you know, this shit is simple. Like, let's keep it simple. Kiss, keep it simple, stupid. But it's also valid that it's hard. Like, change is hard. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm not trying to say it's hard, so don't do it. But what I'm saying is it's valid that you're challenged by this. You know, we all have our things we are challenged by. You know, me and Luke are running businesses. Like, that's fucking hard. Like we're in it. Like, but it's worth it. You know, it's worth it, you know, to go through the grind, to go through the challenges, to learn and grow from these things. But when you're on this journey, you know, we're trying to make changes here, right? We're trying to make changes to your lifestyle, the way you think, and sort of how we live, but doesn't mean we have to do this 360 of your life either. Yeah. Ideally, we're taking your lifestyle and just implementing health and fitness into it. Now, will some changes have to be made? Maybe. Like, you know, if you're drinking a bottle every single day, like that's probably not going to lead to the best health. But Doesn't mean you can't not drink. Like maybe we just have a better management system with that. So we don't have to give up our entire life in order to accomplish pretty incredible things, but just take it slow. And remember this, like we don't have to change everything tonight. You know, if you're someone who's working out 0 times a week, getting 2,000 steps a day and has 0, you know, let's say eats less than 50 grams of protein a day. Well, cool. Yeah, maybe we want you at 100 grams of protein a day, training at least 3 times a week, you know, getting at least 5,000 steps in. But we don't have to do all that because you just simply now getting 5,000 steps a day is going to make progress. Yeah. And that's going to lead to results. And then we maybe add a layer as you get more confident, starts to become second nature to you. It's like, all right, now let's get 75 grams of protein versus 50. Now let's train once a week. And we just make these slow progressions. And eventually you'll get there to the end result of this person you want to be. And the last thing I'll sort of say here is wake up every day and show up as the person who is at that end goal. You know, show up to that person that is 100 pounds less, 50 pounds less. And what are they doing? How do they walk around? How do they show up each day? And start to be that person, like literally legitimately be that person. It's going from being that person who, you know, tells himself, hey, I'm just not a morning person. Well, maybe your 100-pound less self is. And so identify that way. You know, how's that person show up? Because what it ends up being is, you know, the fat loss and weight loss is the goal. But when you approach it from a standpoint of changing habits, changing behaviors, and creating this lifestyle, where that happens to just be the byproduct because of it, right? You're the byproduct of the actions you do. So, you know, think about a fit person. I'm not trying to tell you to compare yourself here either, but think about a healthy, fit person. What things that they're doing? They're walking daily. They're training a couple times a week. They're eating their fruits and vegetables. They're having their protein, eating whole foods. Again, doesn't mean they're not having a donut and ice cream once in a while, but like they're managing things. And so trying to show up just little by little, one little action each day, one little action change each week, and think about it from a standpoint like, hey, I'm just trying to approach it by changing my actions and my behaviors, with the byproduct being I lost weight and fat because of it.
Love it, man. I love it. I was just going to ask, doesn't fruit make you fat though, Kevin?
Fruit makes you super fat. Don't eat. It's always the blueberries. The obesity pandemic here in the U.S. is the blueberries and the strawberries and all that stuff. And
be sure not to blend your bananas with your blueberries. Like, dude, there's so many. Anyways, I'm sorry. You just like left us with so much inspiration, and I just ruined it. But
you're good, man.
Thank you so much, man. Honestly,
thank you.
I resonate so much with you. I feel like when I look at your profile and stuff, I'm like, the first thing I see is daily donut.
Yeah.
Kevin did a weight loss challenge where he ate a donut every single day and lost weight over, was it a month?
Yeah, it's about 5 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I dropped, what was it, like 5 or 6 pounds?
Yeah.
Roughly.
That's awesome. That's awesome, dude. Just busting myths out here. I love it. Yeah. Me and my boys get donuts every single Saturday.
I love
it. It's like, it's just,
dude, that's what it's about, dude. That's what it's about.
Yeah. We love it. Guys, be sure to check Kevin's Instagram out, kpd.fit. Also, he has a podcast called Eat the Donut.
We're gonna have you on it, dude.
Okay, I love that. I'm excited, dude. But yeah, guys, be sure to check him out. Anywhere else, Kevin, that people could, check you out?
Yeah, no, kpd.fizz, most of my socials, Eat the Donuts, my podcast. That's pretty much it. That pretty much sums it up.
Okay. Kevin Driscol, man, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was seriously an honor. Look forward to many more conversations in the future, dude. And guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to, if you're still listening, thank you for putting up with us. And hopefully you got a lot of value out of this episode. Be sure to please share it with somebody who you think might benefit from it. If you could, please leave a review as well. That would be amazing. Until next time, guys, we'll talk to you later.
Thank you, guys. Kevin.